I'm eating brunch with my people though. The homie Dyke just cooked up a feast and we bout to eat it, bro. Fucked around and has to mix the lobster with the poutine. Daddy is rolling blue dream, them boys got down a routine. It's Naptown culture, cooking 7 courses. Had to pass the torch and now I'm grabbing second portion. So sit back, relax, grab a drink and a smoke. It's Harder Brunch on the way and get prepared for the jokes. Whoa.
Hi, and welcome to the Harder Brunch Podcast. I'm your host, Dyke Michaels. With me, as always, my co-host, Thaddaeus Mckee.
Slappy Pappy Wayne.
On the ones and twos, the wheels of steel, the sauce boss of Indianapolis, and the last bespoke dragon. Give it up for Zach Roan, everybody.
Hey there, Hardies.
And a very special first-time guest with us in studio from the wonderful company Ash Blades, Aric Geesaman. Geesaman.
Oh.
I do not have a catchphrase. I should have come prepared.
That's your catchphrase.
That's a great one, yeah. It's probably one of the best.
Eric, I do not have a catchphrase, Geesaman.
Keep your knives sharp.
Ooh.
So I gotta say, I think all your knives look awesome.
Thank you.
They look real. I feel like there's a coolness factor. I know the cool chefs in town have one. I know that for a long time there was a really long wait list.
There was. Our plan for one kind of slipped through the cracks because the wait list got so long. Mm-hmm. But I've finally kind of caught up to it, and it's now like a few months instead of like 18 months. Or 2 years or whatever it was there for a minute.
So for people that don't know you, you make knives?
Yeah, I'm a bladesmith. I have a little shop set up in my garage at my house. I have a forge and an old farm anvil and a couple of decent hammers and all the things that I need to make a knife from start to finish. Forge the blade to shape. I try to predominantly source my wood for local hardwoods from a friend of mine who Indie Urban Hardwood, who basically rescues trees that come down in storms and or just die on people's yards or whatever. Instead of them just getting burned or mulched or whatever, they come down and he gives me little pieces of them and then I try to stabilize those and put those in our knives so that we have a kind of like a long-term connection to this city and and the things that we make in it.
So they're from fell trees of Indy.
Yeah, in fact, I've gotten some really, really cool ones. I've got some stuff from the Museum of Art, Newfields. I've gotten some stuff from their grounds. I am one of maybe 2 people in the city that have some from the Motor Speedway itself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, an old oak tree behind the admin building on turn 1 came down, and they were able to give a couple pieces out, and then the rest of it all got thrown away.
Oh no!
Yeah, by the track. I mean, it wasn't anyone else's decision there, but got some really cool, beautiful local hardwoods that again. Occasionally, I know the exact intersection, or again like that, the exact place that it came from that ties us to, to our city.
I know this is going to be a nerdy question. Can you tell us your favorite wood to work with?
No, this is a great question. Oh boy, I would generally say almost anything spalted. Spalted maple and spalted oak are probably my 2 favorite ones because you get so much activity from the sort of act of spalting. In fact, if you want to even pull up my website, there's probably some there. But yeah, there you go.
What does spalted mean?
So spalting is as layers of a tree die. This isn't always a fully dead tree, but as layers of a tree die, fungus will get in there of different species. And when those fungus make contact with each other, they mete out chemical warfare. And those delineations are where different species of fungi or bacteria have come in contact with each other as they're trying to eat a dead tree. And that's like where they do war.
Wild.
I know, isn't that wild?
Yeah.
So that is, and then, you get all of the beautiful grain pattern that you would normally get in something like a maple tree, but then you get all of this beautiful contrast that gets brought in from the spalting process.
It almost looks like a tree that's been tattooed.
Yes, very much so. Those black lines are utterly permanent. They are now just a part of the fiber, the literal fiber of that tree. And so when I can get my hands on something like a piece of spalted maple burl from a local tree or whatever, I mean, every piece of wood is unique, but those pieces end up visually being extraordinarily unique.
Wow.
Now, to have all the, like, a lot of the top chefs in the city use your product, I mean, that says a lot about your product, I feel like. What, like, I mean, how do you fall into that? How do you fall into smithing, and how do you get good at it? How do you, did you have a long passion for it, or did you just stumble? How do you find out that you're good at it?
Yeah, so I will start by saying I don't think I have a lick of talent for this. This was a long process to develop the skills that I needed to actually do this thing. And it started probably like 15 years ago when, just like you guys, I did a ton of cooking. For my family, I do 90+% of the cooking. And so having a sharp knife is vital to that, right?
Yeah.
If you're doing 2-3 meals a day, sometimes in your house, what are you going to do with a dull knife? There's like nothing more useless and sometimes dangerous than a dull knife. And so really I set about to learn how to at least just sharpen my own kitchen knives, right? And so my dad gave me my grandfather's old oil stones, and he was like, this is what I have for you if you want to try on that. So I set about learning how to do that. And then I really liked that process. Once I got pretty good at it, that took a couple of years in sharpening every knife I could get my hands on. You sharpen and you do enough of something, you handle something long enough, and you start thinking like, I wonder if I could make one of those.
So your dad was a sharpener then?
No. My dad worked in steel, but he just happened to have his dad's stones, my grandfather's stones that he didn't really use. And he was like, why don't you just take them since you're trying to teach yourself how to sharpen knives? Just take these.
What a powerful moment.
I still have
stones that have been in your family generations for...
Yeah.
Wow.
3 generations. Yeah. I mean, my kids will get them one day. It'll be 4 generations worth. And then I set about getting, other tools that I needed to figure out how to really do this well. And it was a couple of years of that. And then eventually I started thinking like, man, I wonder if I could make one of these. And I did, and it sucked. But I loved it. I loved the process. And so I made another one, and that one sucked too. And then so did the next one and the next one and the next one. But I got a little bit better every time until I finally made a knife where I was like, wow, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And right around then, that was probably a good almost 8 months of making as many as I could. I signed up to do sharpening at a farmer's market because there were none in the area. And I just happened to take a knife with me because I was like, I may as well take one of these with me. And the very first person that walked up to the table was like, did you make that? And I said, yeah. And he said, can I buy that? And I said, no, actually it's already someone else's property. But he was like, well, can I order like 3 of those? And I was like, yeah, yeah, absolutely. You can order as many of these as you want.
Yeah.
He went on to order actually a number of knives over the course of several years. And then I got my first sharpening customer that day, and it was kind of an eye-opening experience that like there's some room for this for number one, the sharpening is just a part of it, right? That's maintaining the tools that we all use. And that's just something that every community needs. But, I had the inkling that we also needed really well-made, handmade goods in our communities as well, right? Like for a couple of generations, they kind of got sold on disposable goods. Everything came in a blister pack, and it was just meant to get like thrown away. You're going to dole this out, and you're going to throw it in your dishwasher, and then you're going to chuck it in the garbage. And I think that's a shame because I want to be able to get my grandparents' tools one day. Good ones that are worth having, the chisels and the kitchen knives and they're good ones. But then a lot of times, like our parents weren't. They're not good at all. They were all cheap and disposable. And so, part of it was setting about learning how to make something that was worth keeping, that's worth having for like a couple of generations, that will outlast me. These are things that if really cared for, they'll outlast the owner and the maker, and they'll go on to other people one day.
I brought up the chef angle of it, but these knives are also great for just home use for your home cook. And I feel like if you're a person that doesn't, I don't know, I feel like people are shocked when they get a good knife in their hand, like how much basic things shouldn't have been as difficult as it is, and like when it just cuts through something, it's a game changer.
It is. One of my favorite moments in the whole process of knife making is actually seeing someone use it for the first time. And a lot of times I get to see that if I'm at an event or at farmer's market, or sometimes when someone comes to pick a custom piece up from me or whatever, I'll grab something out of the fridge and a cutting board, and I'm just like, all right, give it a go. And they never fail to be astounded by how much different that is. And quite often I get follow-up messages over the days and weeks of them owning them saying, I just can't believe how much better this is than what I owned. Like it blows this thing out of the water. I've had people, I kid you not, bring their old knives back to me and just leave them at my house like orphans. They're like, well, I don't need these anymore. Do you want them? Like, I'm never going to use them again. I bought these and now I'll never use that. You just have
a drawer full of other people's dull knives.
A bucket of people's old knives that they just like dumped on me because now they have the custom ones that I made them, and they have no use for those anymore.
Yeah. Did you ever play around and do like something like a sword or anything bigger than a knife?
That's what I was about to ask.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I've made is actually a sabrage saber, and I made that out of IndyCar parts and wood from the track.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Where do you get your metals?
Metal I have to order from various places. There are a couple of places in Indiana where you can get it, but most of the mills are not in Indiana. Most of the mills are in like New York or in somewhere in the South. And so you just have to go online and find. There's just a couple of online places where you can order like very specific chemistry steel. Where you know exactly what the alloying elements are.
Oh, I would. You know what? I would love to make one out of copper, like just like a copper, like just through and through, super shiny.
Yeah. So I've made a few things out of copper. Copper doesn't make a great knife.
Oh, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, it can make a beautiful tool, but it makes a really poor knife. I suppose if you only used it on like really soft vegetables, you'd probably get away with it for a while. You know what I mean? But like copper is really bendable.
This is my grape knife.
Yeah. Cucumbers. This is my special cucumber knife. Yeah, but it gets soft, and so copper is. In fact, when you look at human history, we call it the Bronze Age, even though really it started out as the Copper Age, because pretty quickly people figured out that copper alone does not make good tools. You have to alloy it with something else to make it hard enough to be usable, and even then it's beaten out for the most part by iron. So most of those tools, once the Iron Age came along, just got replaced by iron when and where they could be.
This question is going to follow up. Yeah. Have you seen the movie Hook? Great movie.
From when we were kids?
Robin Williams.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Rufio had an amazing sword.
Yeah, that bronze sword.
It was bronze. And so that was what it was. It was bronze. I thought it was copper.
It was gold. Yeah, it's like a bronze saber. And that is a perfect sword for the land of make-believe. They existed again in the Bronze Age. When you look back,
you're crushing that soul right now.
No, when you look back, there were Bronze Age swords. In fact, a couple of the most beautiful swords that we still have from antiquity were bronze swords. But as soon as iron was introduced, it was eclipsed so monumentally that they just didn't do it anymore. It just wasn't worth it. Other than ceremonial, there's a handful of ceremonial swords, and then of course in the Americas they never made Iron Age knives. They stayed Neolithic with their knives. So there were lots of bronze tools that were made in the Americas. But basically once bronze was eclipsed. I mean, and again I'm saying iron, but really it was steel. Once steel, especially like Wootz steel that came out of northern India. Yeah. So the original Damascus steel is called that because it traded out of Damascus throughout the, Europe and North Africa and the Middle East and stuff. But it really originally came from India. So the Indians came up with the first crucible steel. And once they had that, if you had bronze, you were in trouble. that is a monumental leap in technology that just could not be surpassed. And so pretty quickly that started spreading everywhere. And then that was it. We don't make knives out of bronze anymore. You can, and it's a cool learning experience. And in fact, bronze is going to be better than copper. You could certainly chop a pumpkin in half with a bronze sword a few times.
Yeah.
A few times.
Yeah. And then eventually it's going to dull or it's going to bend and you won't really be able to repair it. So then you just have to melt it back down and cast another one.
Wow. That's such a diss for swords, a pumpkin sword.
Well, pumpkins are pretty tough. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not an easy thing for a sword to chop through, I'll be honest.
Really? Yeah. I thought those were like some of the softest gourds.
I mean, a big, thick pumpkin gives a spine of a sword. If your sword is not properly heat treated and you whack it with you whack it on a pumpkin, there's a chance that you'll break your sword.
You know what, guys? When we get the money, I would love to get like swords.
Harder Brunch
swords.
Yeah, no, we talked about it in the meetings.
Yes.
Yeah.
More swords.
Everyone gets a copper sword.
Yeah, I think before t-shirts even.
Get a bronze sword.
Mm-hmm.
So you make custom knives.
Yep.
You do knife sharpening.
Yep.
What's the worst cut you've ever had? What's the worst accident, whoops-a-daisy with a knife you've ever had?
What if you doesn't want to talk about it?
Oh no, it doesn't bother me. I mean, I've had to go to an urgent care a couple of times from a cut. The trick is it's never been from like a properly sharp knife. It's always been when I'm working on one, when I'm like hand sanding or something like that, where it's basically I have not put an actual edge on it, but the steel is so thin that I run my finger across it while I'm sanding or something, and it just like cuts almost to the bone, and then I gotta go
to the bone.
Yeah. So that's happened a couple of times, and it's really not a great time.
Dang.
But then you can imagine once you actually sharpen that knife,
Yeah.
how effective that is if it wasn't sharp yet.
I used to own a food truck, and the guy that like designed it basically just made everything out of sheet metal, like in the back. And so like you'd be cooking and every edge of everything was so sharp, but you wouldn't even feel it. And you would just be like, look down, and all of a sudden you'd be like, why am I bleeding everywhere?
Yeah. I mean, that's the trick about a really sharp edge, right? Is that you don't even know you're cut until you're bleeding. So yeah, a couple of times I've had to go get stitches and shots inside my, that's pretty nasty. Yeah. Where they got to numb in the tissue. Yeah, it's pretty gnarly, but I mean, every time that happens, I can curse myself. But the funnier, maybe not funnier thing is almost every time I go sharpen for a restaurant and I say, hey, knives are sharp, within a day, sometimes within a few hours, I get a text from management that's like, hey, had to send someone to the hospital. Knives are sharp, thanks. And that one...
You should put that as like take snapshots of those texts.
I do.
Do you?
I
as
do.
your
I
reviews?
post them online. Yeah. Yeah. I post them online as basically like my sharpening bona fides.
But no, that is the thing. Like in every restaurant I've worked, when they've had somebody that sharpens the knives, like it's like everybody has to like test them.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They have to feel if they really are.
They gotta see if they believe you.
Well, I'll push my thumb on it.
Right, and then shoop. Or they're not paying attention because they, for the last 2 months they've been putting. So I did an experiment once just to kind of see what this was. I took a cheap knife out of my drawer and I hadn't sharpened it in a while, and I put it on a scale and I cut an onion in half through the root like you would, before you'd start chopping it. And it took like 18 pounds of pressure to get through that onion. And then I sharpened it and it took like 3.2 or less, and that was and that was a cheap knife that didn't have the kind of geometry that I put on a knife or the kind of steel that I use. So when you don't realize how dull your knife is and you're putting almost 20 pounds of pressure into it, and then suddenly you only need 2,
makes a whole lot of difference.
Yeah, and then you just cut the tip of your finger off without thinking about it because you put way more pressure than you were expecting. Or than you needed, and you weren't fully in control of it, right? So, I mean, a sharp knife is a safe knife as long as you control it. If you don't control it, then have fun at the hospital.
Sorry to cut in.
No, go ahead.
Well, okay. I'm going to need you to be quicker on those buttons. That was great.
Shame.
Okay. Well, anyways, sorry to cut in. Has anybody tried to sue you because you're like, man, you're just too good. Like these knives Or like we set them down and they're going through the tables.
Kind of like the McDonald's coffee thing. Like it's supposed to be hot, but not that hot.
Right.
I am extraordinarily grateful to say no one has ever tried to sue me.
Good. Don't sue him, guys.
Please don't sue me. I don't have anything for you to claim.
Unless he deserves it.
I'm a sole proprietor LLC. There's really nothing for you to take from me, but no, everyone has pretty well laughed and said it's my fault. I was being stupid, but I have had someone at one time pick up one of my knives, check it and go, "Oh, this is way too sharp. It's like super dangerous. You should not make them this way." And I was just like, "Yeah, that's not for you then. Don't buy that knife. Like, I'm not going to make them dull because you're scared."
What's the average turnaround time for like a custom knife?
Right now it's a couple months. Honestly, probably 3 or 4. Probably 3 or 4.
There's a waiting list
right now. Yeah, there's a little bit of a waiting list. It's not crazy, but if you ordered one today, it would probably be 3 or 4 months before I had it complete.
Not getting it for Christmas.
Maybe. I do try to get some Christmas orders in. I do. I make a little bit of room in my schedule to like get, one thing I try to do is just finish up as many customs around this time of year as possible and then make a little bit of room for holiday orders.
I was going to try to get you to make a katana, Harder Brunch katana.
That will take a little time.
Just clear your schedule. You're
couple more weeks.
This pumpkin katana.
Yeah.
And if we got hurt, I wouldn't sue you for money or anything like that.
That's good.
I'd be like, give me the rocks. Give me your grandfather's rocks.
It's going to be one of those things where we'll have to come up with a, you have to sign a waiver if you're going to buy a katana.
Okay. Oh, wait. Meaning like we won't do anything bad?
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense.
Now, have you ever thought about taking on like an apprentice and helping?
I have had a couple of apprentices
Crank out some of these knives?
and we've never gotten to the point of cranking out knives.
Okay.
They've always gotten kind of to the point where they're like, okay, I know how to do this. Either I don't want to do this anymore. This is so much work. Or I'm going to go start my own version of the business.
Really?
And that's kind of where it stops, yeah.
Because it does seem almost like a vocation. Like
It kind of is,
not
yeah.
something you want to be like half in the knife game.
It's a lot of work, and it's not something that you could do unless you really wanted to do it, I don't think. Yeah, you got to be really driven to, Friday, without even turning on my forge, without having my kiln on or anything, it was 98 in my shop.
Oh, wow.
Nothing, so when I forge, it adds between 20 and 50 degrees into the shop, depending on the weather outside.
Ooh.
So it's well north of 100 degrees in there if I have to forge.
What do you wear when you're doing it? Like chainmail?
Nothing.
Nothing.
No,
Straight up naked.
Yeah, no, I have a thick leather apron that goes down past my knees, and then I wear a kilt a lot when I have to forge, and just for airflow, and then I can wear a t-shirt.
That makes sense. Is that what that's for?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I wear it for. But as far as what it's for, that's just kind of the culture of the Scottish, Irish, and Welsh people. But which some of my family is that, so it's not appropriation, I promise.
You can wear a kilt all you want.
It's all white people stuff anyway, right? So who cares? But no, it's a multifunctional piece of clothing. You wear it for everything. Was the original intent of that? It's a lot of times you see it now just for like special occasions or whatever. But when it was created, it was an everything. So it's just a way to kind of get a little bit more airflow, frankly. And then, if it's really cold out, actually it doesn't matter if it's really cold out. I'm going to forge in a t-shirt because standing in front of the forge,
it'd be warm.
It's at least 90 degrees, even when it's 0 degrees outside. It doesn't matter. It's hot. And then sometimes, depending on what I'm welding, there's additional safety equipment. Always, safety glasses, of course, but sometimes I have to wear thick leather gloves, put on like welding spalts and stuff like that to cover more of my body for some things that I'm forging. If they're going to shoot off lots of really hot scale, that stuff is like little razor blades that are, 1900 degrees and they come off with force. So sometimes I do have to cover a lot of my body depending on what I'm forging.
Now you don't ever do like restorations of like other like.
I've done tons of that. Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
Like found blades or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. People, again, somebody will be like, "Hey, my grandpa's old, butcher's cleaver or something. The handles are falling off. Can you put some new handles on it?" And yeah.
That's one of the most like satisfying ASMR videos for me to watch. Where like is like watch like the YouTube restorations.
Yeah.
Yep. Just like we found this in the dirt outside, and you're just like, oh, that thing's never gonna look good. And then,
Yep, I do that. Yeah, knock all the rust off and update the geometry on it and put new handles on it, and yeah, I've been able to make some, I think, really beautiful pieces, beautiful restorations that I know get used on like a daily basis from beat up old grandparents' knives and stuff like that.
Now you did something really cool with Baby Got Brunch the past couple of years, where you gave away a very nice knife.
Yeah, I've actually been the grand prize since the start of Baby Got Brunch. Every year I've been like part of the grand prize for the winner, and every year I just make every knife I make is unique, but I make kind of a special piece for that event that is given away to the People's Choice winner.
Who won this year?
Same person who won last year. Cece.
What?
Yep. Our first 2-year winner.
I'd be like, you can't have two knives.
No, she's awesome. So the other thing she won this year, which Baby Got Brunch is going to start, it just is this now, is they have a golden ticket for the World Food Championships now. Oh. So if you win Baby Got Brunch, you get, I think it was noodle dish this year. I don't know. It's not like an open category. You get a golden ticket for a specific category. So that will be the grand prize moving forward is a handmade knife from Ash Blades and a golden ticket from World Food Championship.
Wow. That's awesome. And that's going to be here this year, right?
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
I'm chatting with them too to see if we can come up with something cool.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. We'll see what we come up with.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Sponsored by
Ash Blades.
Yeah, I doubt I'm going to get a sponsorship because those are going to be the Hinkles and the Wusthoffs and the the big publicly traded companies are going to be the big sponsors. But there's a chance that I could either make something cool or partner with one of the teams to do some sharpening for them or something like that. Make knives for the judges or who knows what. I'm not sure.
We're gonna take a quick break here in a second. A quick Tinker Coffee break. Did you get to have any Tinker Coffee?
I did. Thank you. I love Tinker Coffee.
It's my absolute favorite. I'm so glad they're one of our sponsors. But
it's awesome.
I gotta be honest, if they dropped us as a sponsor, I'd still drink Tinker Coffee.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't. I would be very sad about it, but I would still drink it. And my only complaint about Tinker Coffee has ever been that I'm a traveling comedian. And when I go out of town, I stay in a hotel and I have to drink crappy coffee. Yeah. And so I was so excited. I went in there today. If you go into like their actual like locations, you can have this wonderful steepable Tinker Coffee bag. All you need is hot water, and take this bad boy anywhere with you. Get on a plane, get on a bus, get on a trolley.
Travel packs.
During COVID, my wife would buy boxes of those to give away to her lab staff. Just to because they're running COVID tests during the peak of COVID. And so, she went in and ran tests, there's 16-hour days some days, 7 days a week running these COVID tests during the peak of it. And so she would go buy whole boxes of this Tinker steepable coffee just to give everyone, something nice when they took all that gear off to just sit and have a good cup of coffee before they went back in for the next 8 hours of testing dying people for a really scary disease.
That's really nice.
They we lived on that stuff.
This is brand new. You don't know about this yet, Dad.
Whoa.
This is the instant coffee.
Wow, let's see that.
This hasn't even hit the streets yet. This is the
this is that.
The Tinker instant coffee. Yeah. So you have the steeple and you have the instant. Right there,
delicious.
The tea bag, and then this is dissolvable. So
a pill form.
Yeah, you just snort some of it.
It's gonna burn, but it'll eventually get there.
So I think what we got to do is we got to do like an old school like a Folgers taste test. So we're gonna do like a
line taste test.
We do a French press. We do the tea bag, and then we do the dissolvable.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's
Fun
do that.
fact about dissolvable coffee in particular is it makes a really good etchant for blades. So like if you're making a Damascus knife, it's a good way to finish your etch because it imparts it has to be instant though. It can't be because instant coffee removes a lot of the oils and solids and stuff that come out, so that it will dissolve in water and it leaves the acids behind, and they're particularly good at etching Damascus steel.
Interesting. So
We need a tinker blade.
Yeah.
Tinker blade.
That's the
Super fun.
Another fun thing is I don't know if Tinker still has or brings any of their coffee in those old like burlap bags, you know, those old coffee bags. I've made handles out of those coffee bags. You just like layer them up and press them with resin. So we could quite literally make a Tinker coffee knife where if they have those bags, we could press those bags into like, it's like bomb proof resin handle material and then etch the blade with some. Now it would be a little bit of a waste, frankly, to etch a blade with that's really good coffee. I just buy the cheap stuff to etch a blade, but we could do it.
Yeah.
It's
So
a
you
thing
could say
we
it was made out of Tinker coffee.
in at least in small part, yeah.
All right. Let's take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
this week on the After Brunch Podcast.
But when there's someone that's like kind of known for their breasts, I feel like
Okay, Teresa is not known for her breasts.
I thought we were going to dig it out. I thought we were going to dig it out.
She's known for her hair, if any physical feature.
Join us at patreon.com/harderbrunch.
And we're back here talking to Aric from Ash Blades. You brought some of these awesome knives in. Do you want to
Show your blades. Show your blades. Show your stuff.
Whip them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I did bring some stuff.
And if you want to juggle for the show, that would get views up.
All right, ready? Yeah. So I mean, I brought a couple. It's kind of hard with the lighting, I guess.
Tell me a little bit about those markings.
Yeah. So all the little, kind of like a watered pattern that you see on there.
Yeah.
That is Damascus jacket made from bourbon barrel bands. So I cut the straps off of old bourbon barrels and clean them up and forge weld them together. And then, after you kind of layer that a handful of times, then you forge weld a couple of those pieces to a carbon steel core because the jackets don't have enough carbon in them to actually hold an edge. They're soft. They're not hardenable.
Yeah.
So you have to forge weld those to a core of some kind to actually ultimately make a usable blade. And then in this instance, because it was made out of bourbon barrels, the handles also are made out of barrel. That's kind of the outer part of the handle. And then that's the inner part that makes actual contact with the bourbon. A little bit of the char left over.
I gotcha.
The kind of the devil's cut, forever locked in there.
Do you do a little signature on the knife?
Yeah, I have a logo or a touch mark that I acid etch in there. Sometimes the forged blades don't take it very well if there's a lot of forged texture. So I need to get myself an actual forge mark that I can, hammer in after I've forged it.
Good
That's
call.
just something I have to make.
What would you do? Your name or AB?
Just my logo, the AE logo. Yeah. Because it doesn't need to be any fancier than that, I don't think.
what else we got in there?
Yeah, so I got kind of a sister blade to that. That one's called a bunka. This is like a same thing, same materials.
Ooh.
Like a large petty or a small santoku, if you will, like a petite
Another
chef.
rhombus.
Yeah, and then I've got this big gyuto.
Oh,
Hey-o.
It's a big boy.
Now, I would take that to a gunfight.
This one I really like. This is one of our local hardwoods. It's called Spalted, this is rainbow poplar, and normally poplar is just kind of a greenish shade.
Ooh, I like that.
But some percentage of poplar trees end up with this mineral staining that changes it all from green to you get yellows and kind of hazel colors in there. And you get these blues and purples and blacks, almost like a bruising that kind of goes from like green all the way to that color. And then this one happened to be like have a big hole in the middle of the tree. And so in order to use this piece of wood, I had to fill that gap in with resin. And so I made kind of like a galaxy resin swirl in that rainbow poplar. But I like rainbow poplar a lot. It's a really beautiful local hardwood species that I like to use. And then
that's cool.
Yeah.
What are the best like woods to make handles out of?
Well, I that kind of depends. There's a desert ironwood that you can get out in Arizona that's really, really durable, that doesn't need to be stabilized because it's very oily and it's very dense. And that happens to make beautiful wood. But realistically, other than some like rosewoods, which I try not to use those because those are like, you're like clear cutting rainforests to get some of those, and I'm not interested in being a part of that. So if we're talking about hardwoods here in the US, for the most part, you have to stabilize them no matter what, except for like that Arizona ironwood. So it kind of doesn't matter. They're really all usable once you get to the point where they're being stabilized. Oak is really pretty. That's what bourbon barrels are. I love that rainbow poplar. Again, I love maple. I love spalted maple. That's probably my favorite one. Sometimes they're a headache to use, especially burls, and spalted pieces can be kind of a headache to use because they have a lot of varying density throughout the piece. It's not a uniform density. Yeah. So when you stabilize it, sometimes you got to do additional work to like make it really durable. I'm not sure there's exactly a best. It's really, so knife making, bladesmithing in general is really a exercise in compromise. Everything you do, from choosing the specific chemistry of the steel to choosing how you're going to actually shape the knife, to exactly how you heat treat that chemistry of steel, the ending geometry, the balance, what kind of material you put in the handles, all of that is an act of compromise. And the key is to understand where you are compromising and what you're getting for that compromise and what you're giving up for that compromise. If you don't know those things, then you don't know what you're doing, right? You don't know what you're offering someone. You don't know what you've left on the table or where you had room to really maximize or improve or whatever. And so I hesitate typically to say that there's any best one thing or another, because it really is all about compromise, and it's about knowing what compromises you're making to maximize the potential for that piece given its expected function.
What are the different things that somebody's going to ask you for like a custom knife? Like, obviously I want a sharp knife, and you might have the difference in the size or like the aesthetics of it, but like, is there anything different besides like, hey, I'm going to be using this a lot and I need something that's very durable? Like, what are some of the more like, I guess, practical variations that somebody might ask for? Yeah.
So the most common conversation that I have when someone wants to make a custom knife is to talk about like what is really going to be unless they have something very specific in mind, like I just want a 9-inch fillet knife. If that's what they want, then we can start talking about materials and design and stuff. But a lot of times that conversation comes down to what is going to be the most useful knife for that purpose. And so that depends on each person. So like, I have no problem using a big, 9 or 10 inch Gyuto for my daily driver stuff. My grandmother really just wants to use a 4-inch paring knife. That's all she wants to use. She'll do everything with a 4-inch paring knife if she can, right? And then I know, like, my mom would probably prefer something like this Bunka or this Santoku if she can get away with doing as much with this as possible. So it's partly a question of like, what's going to be the most useful piece for you? Because it's fun to make these big flagship knives, but if you're not going to use it, then that's a lot of work and honestly, money for a piece that is just going to sit there while you go use some other, some other piece. So that's kind of the start of the conversation, is like, what's going to be the most useful for you?
Yeah.
And then we can start talking about those design differences, and then the materials, like which steel is going to be best for your scenario. And then same thing with handles. What's going to be the best handle shape? Do you have a really big hand? Do you have a really small hand? Do you have...
Nice for small hands.
Or like I have an uncle who can't bend his wrist beyond about this. And so he needs a handle with a specific shape that accounts for the fact that he's had surgery on his wrist. And so he can't he can't manipulate the knife as well. So there's lots of little one-off things that kind of establish.
Have you ever made a knife handle that was like custom to like someone's hand?
Yes. Now, I've made a number.
I mean, he just said his uncle.
I
Or
didn't.
you're talking about the grips.
Yeah. So the trick though is, especially for a chef knife, it's not usually worth having like finger groove grips because that really limits the way you can use that knife, right? So like, if you're if we build it around a pinch grip, and then you want to go cut a melon, you're not going to pinch grip it anymore. You're going to pull your hand back towards the heel so that you can, you're right. You're not going to pinch grip it anymore. You're going to pull your hand back towards the heel so that you can make full contact. Or if you're breaking down a fish, then you're going to be turning the knife sideways, and you might even put your forefinger out on the spine to help lead that tip to index for that tip. So usually there's nothing like so specific that it's like finger grooves like you see in, I don't know, like combat knives or whatever like that, because you don't ever like lock a chef knife in. You manipulate it in lots of different ways that require lots of different, grip styles. So mostly what it ends up being is just like an idea of how big your hand is to understand how it's going to fit in the most common grip styles into that hand, so that if it's like, I want to be able to slice, break down ribeyes or something, then to make sure that I have enough handle length and then width for that handle size so that they can choke back. Or if they've got a smaller hand and it doesn't need to be this long, you can bring it in just a little bit here and make this a little thinner or whatever so that they can get the right pinch on it.
That's awesome.
Go ahead. I have a question for you. Or are we moving on? It's not a question. It's a Nathan for you pitch. If you need like any help with marketing, I could help. I'm thinking this.
Yeah.
You got the sharpest blades in the business. We need to see more accidents. You see what I'm saying? Where people are cutting themselves, and then it's getting reported on the news. And then they're like, "What type of knife was it, Becky?" And like, it was an Ash Blades knife.
Oh,
and
sponsorship plugs.
Yeah.
So you get somebody to agree to cut themselves with your knife,
we
but
need
when
like
they're on the
100.
news, they say, "Man, I can't believe it. This Ash blade just cut me so quick. Like, I think this could cut my finger and a whole chicken in one go."
And then people are like, Ash Blades aren't really that sharp.
That's a really good idea.
Like, I kind of want to get some. So if you want to run with that pitch and you get like 50 to 100 people that severely injure themselves with your knives, I think that would be great.
We'll just kind of put it in the bottom of the waiver that, like, if you do cut yourself badly enough, you have to call the news.
Call the news.
First, you have to take a photo of it.
You have to tell Channel 4.
Tag us on social media.
Channel 4, is that you?
Yeah.
I've been struck again. It's those damn Ash Blades.
So there was a place that I sharpened for once where I sharpened the first day, dude cut himself so bad he went to the hospital. He was off for a month doing physical rehab. I sharpened again the next month. He comes back, does it again.
That's a fool me twice. Shame on you.
Goes right back to the hospital, and they had to fire him because they're like, dude, you are
On purpose.
No, I think he was just clumsy and kind of dumb. But like 2 months in a row to get bit by that same snake is wild.
Yeah. Like,
yeah, it's wild.
Our insurance can't handle any more of this.
Mine definitely wouldn't want to be a part of that. No.
I do want to talk about the food that we did today, because we did something fun for you.
You did. It was so awesome.
And this segment is brought to us by Smoking Goose. It's time for the Smoking Goose brunch breakdown. Smoking Goose, located at 411 Dorman Street. Over there, the smokehouse. Man, this weekend they had an amazing sale for Labor Day. You guys are sleeping on these sales. They always have like this like freezer sale where you can get like a box of stuff for like it's like $7 a pound.
Yeah.
They dropped it down to $4 a pound. They're losing money. They're giving food away for free. It wasn't free, but it was pretty close to free.
I've made a bunch of knives for them.
And then they know what they're doing over there. And we utilized a lot of product in today's menu.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So you came into Bluebeard where I work.
Yep.
And you were sharpening up some. Am I allowed to say? Am I breaking confidentiality?
I'm happy to talk about it. Kevin's not here. Well, that could be a separate show to dive real deep into it. But yeah, absolutely, we can talk about it.
But I overheard and found out that you were into D&D.
Yep.
And so I was like, man, I'd love to work. And then also that you guys put on a D&D dinner.
Yes.
Dungeons and Dragons, for those of you that don't know.
Yep.
So I was like, man, I really want to do a Dungeons and Dragons brunch. And how does that work? And can we make it work, in tandem with what we want to do? And I know we kind of like move some of your dates around, and then luckily it worked out that you were here because I was like, I don't want to wait like 2 months. I want to do this like soon.
Yeah.
And so it seemed to like line up perfectly.
Yeah.
And then we got a bunch of people around the table that were all excited to play.
So fun.
And now you have a friend named Kevin that does D&D, and I have a friend named Kevin that is very confusing.
Weird is that?
Very confusing.
Yes, and Kevin knows one of the other monster guys. Tyson, I think, is the one that he knows, and so it's kind of weird that we both know that from a different direction.
Yeah,
and that in both circumstances there's a Kevin. Yeah.
But shout out to Kevin Eggleston from Monster.
Yep.
He came and DM'd and looked like he did a great job. I don't know.
It was really fun. It was really fun.
I was making food in the other room, so I just get over here.
Yeah.
And then,
other Kevin and I will have to come run you guys through a fantasy feast for sure. A D&D dinner. And
I'd love to pick your brain about kind of some of the back of the house stuff on
absolutely
how you do that, because this was our first time, and it was play testing a game and play testing food together and seeing how they worked. It was very interesting.
Yep.
And it was a little bit different than what we normally do, but like super fun. And I like the fact that we kind of got to be part of the story building of it.
Yep.
So like that was fun for me. We basically started off with in D&D. There's a thing called dungeon rations, where the idea is like you're traveling for a long time. You have to bring some non-perishable food, and this is like medieval times, so everything is either salted or pickled or some sort of preservation method. So everything that was on that board at the beginning was salted, pickled, except for the Jell-O.
Right.
I also
Did you have any of the Jell-O?
No, you know what?
You didn't?
I didn't. I should have grabbed a bite. I didn't.
Because I asked him what it was. It looked odd to me, and he looked at me as though everybody puts Jell-O on their charcuterie boards.
Absolutely nobody does, Zach. This was because it was Dungeons and Dragons, and I wanted some like make believe kind of like fun stuff on there. So I dyed some pickles.
Yeah.
Gave some Kool-Aid pickles. They were like bright red and this dark blue color.
Yep.
And I was thinking of like the gelatinous cube.
Yes.
So it was just like, I wanted all the dried kind of like actual stuff you'd come in, and then I wanted like some fantasy foods on there, but stuff that was also like edible, you know? Like,
No, it was great. That was really fun. And honestly, what you guys put together is in a lot of ways really similar to what Kevin and I have written for a fantasy feast.
Oh, nice.
It's that concept that you're wrapping food into an adventure, and that the food itself plays a major part in the adventure. And then, as far as the way that we do it is just to kind of partner with different restaurants to decide what they want that dinner part to look like. It can be, scaled up. It can be scaled down. At Bluebeard, we're talking about like a multi-course meal, like what you guys did. But other places maybe won't have as many courses, and so we just kind of adjust the adventure to reflect what that individual place wants to do. And so, yes, it was really cool to essentially experience that from the other side
The
of the
other
table
side of it, yeah.
instead of being the dungeon master.
And it was a surprise.
running
Right? I
it.
didn't
It was
tell you-
absolutely a
didn't tell you I was
surprise.
gonna do it, so-
It was a very
I almost kind of
surprise.
forgot that I didn't tell you. So when you came in, you're like, "What are we doing?"
Yeah, I saw dice on the table and I was like, "Whoa, dice on the table!" Yeah, that was really cool treat, and I really appreciate you guys doing that with me.
And you played really well with your character. Your character was really good.
Everyone played really well with their character. Everyone did a great job. That was a great time.
I had an idea, and I don't know if this would necessarily work in a lot of circumstances, but since it was out of our home, I wanted something where there was some sort of trigger that you had to make a decision, and based on that decision, it would change the actual what was being the menus being served.
Oh yeah.
So there was a different menu had you guys picked. Had you guys gone not with the Kraken? What was it? The Kraken or the?
We did the Kraken first, then the Brazen Bowl.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember what the last one was called, but yeah, I like that idea that you can shift the menu around depending on it. I mean, I don't.
Oh no! I don't think you understand. There was a whole secret dish that nobody got.
Oh no!
There was a braised oxtail and mashed potato, and you know what?
We
Everybody
never made it there.
No.
Because we didn't get. Yeah,
That's what I mean. There were forks that
we fought in the middle of the
Yeah.
street instead of going to that.
Yeah.
We just picked the fight as soon as she landed in the giant alien, weird crow. We were like, well, she's on to us. So we just fought right then and there in the street. We never made it to the Brazen Bull. We never got there. So that's why that dish never came out.
Yeah. Yeah.
How mad are you that we didn't get to try that?
Oh,
I'm sad.
I'm not, because Dyke made it and it was delicious.
I'm sad.
It was one of the best things I've had.
Zach's the only one that ate it.
Yeah, it was one of the best things all year. So I think it was cool. There was actual consequences to to what
I
happened.
think you were excited about that. You came out and mashed a cake in front of our eyes.
Yep.
Yeah. For not being nice to a hag, though. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of the more creative things that he said early on. He's like, how we make a dessert that has a bomb attached to it, and they don't fuse the bomb, then I just smash the cake out.
Yeah.
And I was like, I love that idea.
That's exactly what happened.
I was so happy that it got smashed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it needed to be.
Well,
it did. I think that's the right call.
The other thing, when I was making it this morning, first I took the molded chocolate and I kind of tried to dye it, and it turned out skin colored. So then I had these little skin colored cubes, and I was like, I hate this.
Skin bricks.
I had some gold
Flesh chunks.
yeah, edible gold spray, but it went out halfway through, and I had to go dig around and find some gold powder or whatever.
Wow. So you didn't want anybody to see it.
Yeah, so I was kind of happy you got to smash it.
Man.
That was cool.
How disappointed are you that yours didn't get tried?
I'm still gonna eat it later. So
Oh, you
I'm
should.
cool. Yeah.
This sounds awesome. Yeah.
Well, because it was either the scallop dish that you got or the
The brass bowl was one of the other.
Yeah.
Was it like a Jamaican witch? Is that why you did oxtail?
No, it was
Just because
We just knew. So there was probably a minimal of communication. I just knew the dishes we were making, and then Kevin had a whole story put together, so I wasn't even sure how it was all gonna.
I just got insight. It wasn't a Jamaican wish. It was the Brazen Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
I was thinking
Yeah.
like it was gonna be ramen. I thought.
bull.
Yeah, I was thinking of
B-U-L-L.
bull.
Yeah, yeah. And that's why it ended up being a barbecue place in the end. Yeah. So when we run Fantasy Feast, it's ultimately a set menu because they're paying.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, because they're paying to be there. But this is a really fun way to do it as a home game.
I was also thinking
for
about
sure.
we didn't do this, but I was thinking about things like roll for silverware, and if you bought your roll, you just have to eat with your hands.
Yeah, for Fantasy Feast, we do roll for a drink.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So there's like a drink menu, and you roll a d6, and whatever you get. Unless you really don't want to. If someone's going to be picky about it, that's fine. But
Yeah.
but
You don't
yeah,
want
we
to-
try
you
to
don't wanna play with those
encourage
people,
as
yeah.
much die rolling as possible.
Yeah.
Same thing with character. You roll a d6 to get your character. If there's 6 people at the table, everyone rolls a d6, and you get what you get. And
I
think
love
that's
the
a fun way to do it.
consequence of it, and trying to make that work or something where you would roll. Because I was even thinking there's this kid who makes this. Have you had Gavi sauce? Gavi sauce.
John Gavi sauce.
It's like Indianapolis's new hot sauce. It's so good.
Oh yeah, I know that.
And
It's good sauce.
the kid that makes it brought some over. It's good on everything. It's kind of like a little it's like fruit based, I guess. It's like a little fruity, but it's got a perfect amount of heat to it.
Nice.
But I was just like, oh, like what if we like rolled to unlock the sauce or something like that?
Yeah.
Like just an additional thing.
Yeah.
Or make someone take hot sauce.
Yeah, or if you
punishment.
you just put some hot sauce in your eyes if you
If you roll a 1, that's the punishment for it.
Yeah.
You gotta have a spoonful of hot sauce.
The punishment makes it a little bit more exciting, right? Like, you go, some bad shit could happen.
I mean,
like, I think you should roll for your senses. Like, am I able to see during this meal? Am I able to taste during this meal? You know what I'm saying? Like, that stuff where you put on your tongue and you can't even taste. Everything tastes weird. So your whole meal could be messed up for half. What was it called?
GHB?
Oh, sorry. GHB.
No.
Is that what it is? Wait. What did I say? What did I say?
That's something else. That's something else.
What did I say?
He said what he said.
Do you know what GHB is?
Yeah, it's a drug.
Oh, this is a family friendly show.
Yeah.
Sorry about that shit, kids.
Continue. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I mean, but yeah, this was really cool. I'm glad. I really appreciate that you guys put that on. It is, you know, again, Kevin and I have been writing a bunch of adventures, and it's such a fun way to do a dinner. You know, restaurants especially do a million dinners, and I don't know if that gets boring or not. You know, but talking with some of the chefs, they're like, this is a really cool way to make a dinner interactive.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how we're pitching it. You know, it's like beef and boards or whatever, however you want to look at it. But, you know, you get to sit down with a group of friends around a table and roll a bunch of dice and go on an adventure and then have a unique meal. So right now we've got like 6 chapters written for this first story arc. And depending on how many restaurants we ultimately get to be a part of this, even if you ran the same chapter, if you ran it at 2 different restaurants, it would be 2 different meals.
Oh,
entirely.
yeah, sure.
Even if the adventure was the same basic adventure, the dinner would not be the same. It would be different every time you played it.
And it's always, I feel like D&D is always different.
Yeah,
every time based on the players.
And yeah, exactly, based on the
choices
players.
that they make. You know?
Right, and we roll up like 10 characters, and we have 6 people per table. So, at any given time, even if again you ran the same adventure 3 or 4 times in a row, it's going to be different every time to a certain degree, because there's different restaurants and different menus and different characters that are going to be played. They're going to have different abilities and powers and stuff like that. So that's kind of the idea.
Do you have any more restaurants lined up right now?
We don't have any dates for any other restaurants, but we are in talks with 3 other restaurants to get it up and going beyond Bluebeard.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we'll see.
I feel like
I hope it is. I hope it takes off.
There's like a natural synergy between D&D and knives. You know, like I don't know, they're both just like medieval kind of like vibe to it.
Certainly, there's some thought in the future about designing some knives for uber nerds that are kind of designed around like that specific idea. What would a dwarven knife look like? What would it look like from that culture?
A bard knife, a wizard's knife,
or probably like an elven, almost like those people in that world. What would the dwarvish people make? What would a halfling? What would the elvish people? What would their knives look like? Presumably they cook food. Yeah. So what would their knives look like? So there might.
That could be a whole book.
Also, imagine running this like for a wedding rehearsal dinner. Just
for some nerds.
Yeah, for like a super nerd wedding.
Yeah.
And then there's some ideas rattling around up there about how to tie those things together. We'll see how they.
It's real fun. I knew it was going to be experimental, and
that is, I think, what's fun about it. And so for Fantasy Feast, where possible, we try to coordinate it so that like the menu really is built around where that adventure would take place in that theoretical world. Yeah. And so then again, so we've got an adventure that's a coastal adventure, you can imagine. So, one place might be, like a Japanese coastal food, and then one might be Caribbean coastal food, and then one might be Mediterranean coastal foods. And so all of those are coastal foods, but all of those are different foods. Yeah. So depending on what restaurant you go to or which chef you're talking to, if they're feeling like, oh, I really want to do this or even depending on what time of year it is, what comes in the back door that week, right? So if you're like, oh, hey, we've got fall harvest stuff coming in, and we're doing the one that takes place outside the mountains or whatever. Okay, so let's look at what comes in the door and what the setting is for this adventure for this week, and build, a bespoke menu for that adventure for those people.
That's so cool.
To make it really kick ass and unique.
Can you drop a beat for me there, Sauce Balls? Aric, thank you so much for being on the program today.
Guys, thanks for having me.
Go ahead and plug both Ash Blades and Fantasy Feast, where people will find you and follow on social media.
Okay, so Ash Blades, ASHBLAEDS. So I have Instagram, I have Facebook, I have a website, which I think was pulled up earlier on the show, www.ashblades.com. Again, BLAEDS. You can find me there. Again, Instagram, Facebook. I do have a Twitter. I don't use it very much. It's kind of a hellscape over there.
Sure.
And possibly more social media to come. Oh yeah, I do have a TikTok, same handle. I just don't use it very much because that app's weird. And then Fantasy Feast, you're just gonna have to kind of keep an eye out right now for first Bluebeard, and then we'll see as the other ones on board. We're still kind of working on getting social media up and going. So at the moment, you'll see it pop up on Ash Blades.
Okay.
As we get the rest of that social media up and moving.
Sweet.
For Fantasy Feast.
That's awesome. Thaddaeus J.
I'm Thaddaeus Mckee. You can find me at Thad Mckee on all social media. Today I'm drinking Ray. Go to Upland and drink this new beer called Ray. It's magic in your throat.
Zach Rome.
If you like this, then definitely check out our After Brunch show. It's our Patreon that is only $3 a month. You can find us at patreon.com/Harder Brunch.
Casey Campbell.
You can find me talking about the cinematography of movies, but also trying to figure out how to get rid of fingerprints on blades on Instagram at Danger Brewer.
I'm Dyke Michaels across all social media. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you next time here on Harder Brunch. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.